So the first thing we want to talk about is our voice. When you're talking with people on your social media, your Facebook page, your Instagram, you really want to be authentic. It's having a conversation. That's why they're logging in. They want to see what you're up to, what your team is up to, what's going on with your program. You've already captured them in some way. They already have some type of interest. So you got to keep them coming back. You want to make sure that you use correct grammar. It's very easy to do typos because we're trying to get information out fast, and we really want to try to avoid that. Have someone else take a second glance at your post before you post it. Make sure you're not overusing hashtags. I really like to limit the hashtags on Facebook to 2 to 3, and I like for them to be at the end. When we incorporate hashtags into sentences, what happens is it can come across as spam and sometimes be flagged. We never want to ruin our algorithms with something that might show up as spam. And we'll talk more about that later. Here's a good example of a post that's talking about, the dean's list. That is a great, great thing that we want to celebrate. We don't want to put a lot of information on the picture itself because people want to read what you have. And sometimes it is hard to read when you put a lot of words on a picture. This is a great, compelling picture of our Panther. He is celebrating. We're very excited about, how many students were able to be on that fall dean's list. And we talk about the average GPA. Why would I want to put those words into a post rather than on a picture? Well, the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this post is searchable. That is very important. When people are searching Dean's List 2021, our post will come up, even if it's in a Google search, because we do such a great job of marketing. And I always call it the magic. We want to pop up in that magic. That's why we want to use post rather than a lot of words into a graphic or photo. So make sure you're always sharing that story. Sharing links. It is a great way to get people to click right where you want them to go. But you want to make sure that your link is actually working in there. You want to make sure it's clickable within the post. In this post, for example, you'll see right here where it says, it's the seating symposium, learn more. That tells me I can click it. And that might seem really simple to you, but how many times have you been on your phone and you're trying to click on something and you click and click and click and nothing happens, but a picture pops up? And you don't want to save the photo. You want to go to the link to apply or to win a contest or read an article, but you can't because it's not a link, it's a photo. That is one of the biggest mistakes that we make in social media, is not making the user experience super friendly. Guess what happens if they can't click on the link to go to this awesome blog? They leave. You never want your audience to leave. You never want to make it more difficult for them to find the information that you're talking about. When you're sharing the link, ask yourself, do I need to send them away from this page? If it is a long article, the answer is yes. If you want them to apply for admissions because your admissions deadline is coming up, yes, you want them to leave your Facebook page and you want them to go to this link. That is really important because you need them to do something. You need them to take action. And that's what a link should do. It should help your user take action. We have identified the action in this post by talking about the International Seating Symposium, and we want to give them more information. It's a very compelling photograph. We can choose that when we make the post on Facebook, okay? And we have one hashtag there, bold moves SHRS. Why is that important? Because when you click into that hashtag, it gives you a running list of all of the posts where that was mentioned. That being said, if you're creating hashtags to use for your program or department, you want to make sure that you check the hashtag before you start to use it. You want to make sure that you are using something that has appropriate content already established, or maybe there's no content even established, and that's even better because then you can build that up to be all of your content. Hashtags are used for searching. So in Instagram, you might use anywhere from 10 to 26 hashtags. That's how Instagram works. It's a very hashtag based social platform. Everybody, hashtag foodie, hashtag dinner, hashtag dessert. You click through there and you're going to see some amazing food pictures. You're going to go down a dark hole into some food. And I know I'm talking about food and it's lunchtime. So you'll have to take a little gander at that later on. Question was asked, can you change a thumbnail? Yes, you can. If your website gives you the option for that. Some websites don't let you put multiple photos into your blog or the page that you are showcasing. That there has to be a thumbnail there. If you're using something like Hootsuite or Agorapulse to schedule your post, sometimes you have to really finagle with that to get it to have the right thumbnail in Facebook. But there is a way to go on and choose your own thumbnail. And sometimes it's just trial and error. And if you keep getting an error, I'd be glad to work on that with you. Let's see here. So the hashtags, we started talking about that. A hashtag is searching. Think of it as something that people will search in the future. You really want to limit those Facebook posts with the hashtag. Same thing with LinkedIn. I try to think of them as two in the same. I really want you to give me a nice conversation, a link if I need it, maybe a hashtag. Put them in at the end. You never want to sync up Instagram and Facebook to automatically post because of this rule of hashtags. Your post will come off as like spam. People can hide it. They'll mark it as spam. Lots of people do that now because they don't want all those hashtags. We also have identified two different groups of users. Our Instagram users are a younger generation, and our Facebook users are more of, well, my generation is when Facebook came out, you had to be in college. And I remember getting my Facebook account many years ago. I was at Point Park University, and it was a way to connect with college. Now, a lot of college folks are headed into Instagram and TikTok, which we will not tackle TikTok today, but I know that it's become a high interest, and we will have a training for that in the future. So we want to remember those difference in audience when we think about, oh, if I auto connect, that will be so easy. It will be efficient. I only have to post one time. But what happens is a lot of times your Facebook will suffer. If your Facebook has 10 or 15 hashtags in it, and then you say, you know what, this is a great post, I want to boost it. That means I want to put money behind it and advertise. They'll deny you. You don't want to be denied. After you get denied so many times, then you could go to Facebook jail. I joke when I say that, but it is a real thing. They will hold your Facebook account if you're using way too many hashtags on business pages. And this is all about your business page. Your program is considered a business page. You do want to make sure that it is appropriate and that you are sharing appropriate things on here and using these rules correctly, because we want your program page to do well. And we're always representing the University of Pittsburgh. We love to tag other pages for interaction. Now, the other page, I want to say this, they can choose whether or not to accept your tag. If they choose to not accept your tag, your post could stall. Not a lot of people will see this. Why do we tag? We want to interject ourselves into other audiences. We want to gain more followers. We want to spark that interest across people who might have the same interest as our folks. This is a great example of someone who is tagging properly. This is a Facebook post, and with a Facebook post, it's going to come up nice and clear. There's not going to be the @ symbol. When you tag on Instagram, you'll see the @ symbol and a username. I'm pretty sure that their username on Instagram is going to be different than this name here. Why is that important? Because if you are auto connected, and let's say they are, Pitt CSD on Instagram. Well, if you put at Pitt CSD for Facebook, nothing will come up. It will look like it's a scam or a spam post, and it could be flagged by Facebook because you're running a Facebook business page. So we want to be really mindful of that. I know that sometimes it's just easier to use a scheduler app or to do auto link, but we really want to discourage that. You want to make sure that the page is displaying correctly when you tag it. If you have a relationship with someone who runs one of these pages, make sure you reach out to them and let them know, hey, I'm going to be tagging you because we have this great article coming out, or we're working on this campaign, and it's really going to be great for your audience. I hope you'll accept my tag. It is still great to talk to people in real life before you tag them on Facebook, and I really encourage that. We talked about the usernames can be different, and that's one of the things that the Instagram users really like. They, if they are a chef, they are, Chef Ashley 123 on Instagram, and all of their pictures might be about food and traveling and eating food. But on Facebook, I might be just Ashley Frida. So when you tag me, it's going to be different. You're not going to get my Facebook page to link up to your Facebook page, and then you're stalled out. The other thing is it's hard to boost posts where you tag a lot of different people or business pages on Facebook. So we do want to be really mindful of that, as I know some of you are getting to the point where you want to do some ads on social media. And I will tell you, as I look at the back end of things, we are seeing a lot of heavy traffic coming from Facebook to our website, to the admission pages, filling out applications, and Facebook has really improved with their user reach and search. And they're also kind of competing with Google AdWords these days. So it's really neat to watch. And I really want to make sure that we put these best practices in place because they'll really be helpful in the future. Stories. I hope some of you have seen some stories with Instagram and with Facebook. They are a day in the life, what's happening. Use compelling photos, short videos. This is a great example of somebody helping someone else. Wow, I want to know more about what they're doing. Oh, there's a link to, the SHRS page. I can find out more there. And you can put that in your stories. If you're not familiar with stories, they're on Facebook and Instagram. And sometimes it's fine to connect your stories to one another. It just depends on what you're talking about and if it's audience specific or not. You just click on stories. You can insert a story. The cool thing about stories, they disappear after 24 hours. So you can grab some engagement without creating that big post. You can still add a link. You can add music. You can tag people in a story. You don't want to go crazy with the tags. And you want to make sure that you use appropriate music as well. But stories are just a great way to grab people. And let's say like you posted on Sunday, but now it's Friday and you haven't really posted anything and you really need your audience to come back. Stories are a great way to grab them again. Sometimes our stories have 1,000 views. Sometimes they're 500, 200, 300, 1,000. They pop in and out. And then we can see where the interest is, what day of the week, what time are people watching the stories. And then that helps us to make decisions on when it's best for posting. And as someone who has a business page, you all would have access to see that data. And that's something that we could talk about in the future too. If you are someone who manages the page and you want to see when your users are coming on and looking at things and what they're clicking on, I'd be glad to talk with you one-on-one about that. We have events. Events are a fabulous way to get people engaged. It is their own personal calendar in the palm of their hand. Everybody that has a page has an event section on their page. You can also put advertising dollars behind these. That's why they're so important. One of the things that I want to encourage is to use this section, but make sure that your pictures are engaging. We have different pictures here, and they're all related to their own session. One of the biggest things, it's written out. Even though it might be your page and your audience might mostly know that, your OTD, you really want to write this out. Why? SEO, because that search engine, when they're Googling something, your event will start to pop up. The more you say it, the more you type this out, they can find your event, whether they're a Facebook user or not. And that is a great thing about Facebook events. The other thing that you want to do is to make sure that you are including the day, the date, the time, and the place. Virtual. Is it virtual? We want to say that in the headline. We want them to know if we expect them to come on campus or if they're going to be joining a Zoom. That's super important, because if someone's planning to come and they think they're traveling to Pittsburgh and it's really virtual, then we might have someone who is upset about that. And we never want to upset a prospective student. So make sure that you're very clear in your subject line, and always put the link to register. If there is a link to register, you can put it in the description and talk about your event in the description, but I also encourage you to go back and post in the discussion. And why is that? Because when people RSVP to your event, and I hope that you RSVP to your own events as well, they're going to get reminders. They're going to say, Susie signed up for the Master of Rehab Technology virtual session. And I'm going to say, I want to go. I want to be there with Susie. And then, like, where can I register? Where can I register? Oh, I'll look in the event and there's a link in the discussion. I'm going to click there. I'm going to register. Now, Susie and I are both going to be on this virtual session. Then it's a day before. Guess what? Facebook automatically sends those folks a reminder. So if they click going or interested, they're going to get reminders and updates every time you post in there, and as the countdown begins. When it's the day of, they're going to say, your webinar is starting now, or information session, whatever you called it. They're going to say, it's time for your session. They're going to keep reminding that person. And that's one less thing that you have to do. And that's really helpful. I mean, how many times do we think, oh man, I should have sent an email to everyone who registered? Yes, you should. That is a very important part of the campaign. But if you have it on your Facebook events and you have quite a few people who put yes, they're going, or yes, they're interested, they're going to get those reminders automatically. And sometimes even more so than if you send an email. So it's just another way to engage with your audience, and it's free with your business page, and business pages are free. And also talk about your event in your post. Talk about, hey, tonight we're going live for sports science virtual information session. Here's the login. Please register here. You can say that the day of an event. Don't be afraid to talk about that. I want you to really use this as a way to follow up with your audience. The following day after the webinar, say something like, did you miss out on our webinar last night? Mary Elias gave a great, session with answering questions with students. Here's a link to that recording. Wow. Okay. Now I can watch it recorded because I totally forgot about it. We really want to make it easy for the user. And that is something that we've investigated with user experience, and how users really are on social media right now. They want an experience. They want it to be easy for them. And although it might sound simple to you, like, oh, that seems easy, I could post about that. That's what it really is. It's about being simple and talking about your program, let them know what's going on and how they can be involved. And guess what? If they're not involved, their sister might be interested, or their friend might be interested. It's a virtual word of mouth. It's a virtual conversation, a digital conversation. We used to all talk in person so often, and now that digital conversation is taking over, and we need to be part of it. When do I post? I would suggest posting 3 times per week. This will give you a rhythm. We are seeing the most engagement on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for our audiences. On Mondays, we realize that a lot of people are catching up and they might not be able to have the time to read through things or to really log in. But by Tuesday and Wednesday, they are definitely ready for a change. They're taking a break. They're really just scrolling through, seeing what's happening. If you only post once a month, you're going to lose some credibility with your audience because they're going to think that you only want to talk to them when you have something going on. You really want to make sure that you're talking about different things. You're in Pittsburgh. And so if there's snow on the Cathedral of Learning and it looks beautiful and that's part of your daily commute, snap a photo, share it in your stories. That's one way to engage with people. Someone might say, oh my, you have a lot of snow. There's sunshine here. And that's just engaging with your audience. It doesn't always have to be something that is curriculum specific or, register now. We're seeing that a lot of times that people are looking are early morning and late at night. And I think this makes sense for our audience at SHRS because we have students who are really immersed in their curriculum during, like 9 to 6 hours. Oh, I see your question in the chat. Awesome. And so, we really want to engage with them. This morning, we did have a Facebook Live with Matt Darnell from Sports Science, and he does a terrific job. He says all of the right words. And why is that important? Because when people are listening to his words and we're running different ads for SEO and people have their microphones turned on in their settings, they're going to start seeing our ads. And that is the magic of marketing. And Facebook Lives are so valuable. And I think we're going to talk about this next. But this is a great post. It's Matt. He's in his element. He's got his Pitt polo on. So he's well branded and he is going to be live. This is an older post, but they're like, oh, wow, what is he doing there? I wonder what he's going to talk about on his live event. You really want to show the people behind the program. People want to know, like, who is my teacher going to be? Who's my mentor going to be? Who is this person? What do they like? How will I connect with them? How will they care for me and help me to be successful as I go through these hard programs? Because our programs are very intense and well worth it. When I talk to a lot of students, I say, tell me about a day in the life. And they talk about the support that they get from their faculty and staff. They talk about the support from other students. They talk about how some parts of the program are demanding, but once they're in those internships or they see how successful people are when they graduate, it makes those long study hours completely worth it. And that's the feedback that we want. And those are the stories that we should be sharing. And this is why we go live right here. Get to know your personality. Let them know there are humans behind these programs. We know that some of our online advanced education programs are very intense, but we're going to help you to get through it. And here's how. Here's how we're going to help you with time management. Time management has been a key word search for going back to school. So if you can write a blog for your program about time management, you're going to get some traffic to your page. You're going to get some interest. People want to know how they're going to handle this with their life. They want to feel like part of the community. Tell them what you do. Tell them what you're active in. Tell them what your students are active in. Do you have a study group that meets, once a week or once a month, or how will you support them? You should keep your live event brief. If it's 3 hours long, you've talked too much. And you want to make sure that, maybe 30 minutes or less. We've had some great live events that are like 7 or 8 minutes. And it's hard because you are kind of talking to yourself, right? But think of all the questions that you get from prospective students, right? When they come in to talk to you, what do they ask you? And just keep a running tally of those questions. And you're like, oh, I had this question 10 times in the last year. I'm going to say it on a Facebook Live. The great thing about Facebook Live is people can use it to watch it anywhere. We can share that link over and over and over again. We can share it on LinkedIn. We can share it all over the place. We can email it to people. And if we don't like it, we can just delete it as if it never happened. And that, knock on wood, has not happened yet since I've been here. They've all been really, really good. Come prepared, put a list of questions in sight. So if you have a whiteboard or a bulletin board and you are, facing the audience this way, have it in front of you so you can read your questions. Always tell them that they can drop questions in the comments below, but you might not get back to them today. If you have a webinar coming up that week, a lot of people do a Facebook Live when they have an upcoming webinar, which is a great way to either follow up from that webinar or to enhance registration for that. You want to put the link to that webinar in your comments below your Facebook Live. And that'll just help you to kind of keep on track and have a good rhythm, and just let them know that you will answer their questions as soon as you can. So you could either answer them in a direct message, or you can just type back to them, which is also a great way to get information flowing that other people would be able to see it. Remind them of the application deadlines and tell them why they should choose Pitt. Why are we the best for their program? And you can always just end it with, I can't wait to see you all in my webinar tomorrow night, or thanks for joining us live, hail to Pitt. And then you just click end live and post. That's the most important thing. You want to make sure you post it so that it lives on Facebook forever, or until you decide to take it down. All right. I feel like I went pretty fast through that. And I wanted to save some time for your questions. And let's see if I have anything else in the chat here. Oh, I answered that one. We answered the thumbnails. We able to share events to our page. How can we best direct people to the event section? So if you're going to share events to your page, what you should do is you should go onto your Facebook page and you would click create an event. And from there, you would put in the information. If you're sharing other people's events to try to get it in the event section, a lot of times it won't let you if someone else is the owner of that event. If you're going live during an event, if it's an in-person on-campus event, I would just put a caption there. Maybe it's, graduation. You'll say graduation ceremony in the year, spring 2022, and just go live, show the room. Don't record all of graduation. I would just do snippets of it and things like that. That way you would be able to just gauge their interest, catch their interest, link to your programs, and any admissions deadlines that are coming up for people who might be interested in those things. Let's see, we are going to share a PDF document with some tips, some do's and don'ts, so that you can stay on track. And I will also be glad to answer any questions by email. I am anf173@pitt.edu. I had to think about that for a second. If you want to email me, I can type it in the chat to you. Yes, unmute and you can talk. You don't have to just type in the chat.
Ashley, I have a question for you. What other negative effects are there to only posting, let's say, once a month?
I think a lot of it is credibility. You lose that rhythm. They might think that your program is struggling. They might think that you're no longer doing anything with that. They might think there's significant changes. For example, when the pandemic hit, a lot of in-person things were canceled, and people would post that their in-person things were canceled, but then they never followed up with, hey, here's what we're doing to get through that. Here's what we're doing, virtually. Here's how we want to connect with you. And then, a month later or 6 months later or a year later, they say, hey, now we're open again. And you're like, what? I thought you were close. What's the in-between story? And I think that, credibility is the biggest thing that we lose when we're not posting, and people get used to that rhythm. They get used to seeing us in their feed, and they want to see us. We have a very engaging audience at SHRS. Any other questions?
I'm just going to ask a question. Do you suggest any content management platforms over others for people to use?
I feel like that's a trick question. When Hootsuite first came out, it was fine. It was good. But then what happens, right now with Facebook, they're having many, many changes with their, Meta platform and combining there. So what they're doing is they're making it more difficult for you to use those platforms. Instagram is the sister of Facebook, but they don't make them friendly to talk to each other in an auto posting type thing. I know it takes more time, but I really do prefer to post on one and then to post on the other. And then LinkedIn too, that's another thing. But a lot of times what you post on Facebook, you can just go on and post on your LinkedIn business page. Because I have not found one platform that is 100% perfect. It might mess up your thumbnails. It might get stalled out for too many hashtags. And some platforms are talking about actually banning some of those from being able to log in and auto post, because things like Agorapulse and Hootsuite, they are charging a lot of money to help you do those posting. And as you can imagine, Facebook wants in on that. They want to figure it out for you. And if you're already in there, and they do have a calendar, you can schedule things in advance on Facebook. You can connect to Instagram if you want, but I really don't recommend that. There's just a lot of kinks in that. Anyone else with questions?
If not, I do want to do a quick plug. I know in the very beginning of the webinar, Ashley, you were talking about voice, and Brian Bayer, our communications manager, will be holding a branding webinar next week on March 1st. I can't believe that's next week. So please register. The link was in the insider. He also sent out an email. We will have a reminder going out this week. So just a reminder to sign up for that.
That's awesome.
Anyone else?
Well, thank you all for joining us and spending your lunch hour with us.
Thank you. Have a great day.